So also I would like to ask everybody to indicate your own full name. So let's start. Our first speaker, Kati Tiainen, Head of Education Engagement for Microsoft in Europe, Middle East and Africa from Finland, with her topic, the impact of digital transformation in secondary education. Please.
So there's no video. I can start right now.
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. It's early morning here in Finland. I know it's a noon there in Kazakhstan. I hope you have had a good and interesting morning. Let me get my slide to the beginning of my deck and let's start to elaborate what the digital transformation and the experience we have gone through globally in the past 18 months with pandemia means for us. I'm myself a Finnish educator who has been working with the digital transformation in education for the past 20 years, starting, of course, from my own school, my own city, and then working with the book publishing organizations, and now for the past years here at Microsoft, and looking this transformation, the opportunities, the challenges on global level when I was running the Innovative Schools program, and now lately here in Europe, Middle East and Africa. And of course, I want to start a presentation with thanking you, because I know that making sure that learning is never stopping in the past 18 to 24 months has been a global challenge. And I know that education systems, teachers, school leaders around the world has really done a huge stretch to jump on to hybrid and remote learning, and also taking care of the students who have had, who have been struggling with the learning. Or of course, we also have seen some students thriving in this type of digital environment. So really interesting times. If we want to look the future or the kind of current promise that why technology is needed in education and how it can impact and improve the learning outcomes, I think it's also good to look a little bit with the history. We have a century of public education now, about after the First World War, where technology has been developing, starting from the concrete blackboards where all the students that were able to start to do their own writing, then to more digital tools or using videos and video content as part of the learning process. But we have been very, very concentrated for the first century of the public education into the classroom technology. And of course, classroom has been the place where the magic has happened. And it's obvious, and it has actually enriched and improved the global learning outcomes, the literacy rate, etc., tremendously. But now I think we are in the tipping point that what we had to do with pandemia was really to make sure that we are not only focusing for the classroom technology. So we would rather say that all the current technology development in the society, like algorithms, data analytics, artificial intelligence, big data, is actually opening also opportunities for secondary education and all education segments to rethink that how actually it's no longer an opportunity we can integrate into the classroom teaching or not. It's more like imperative. It's something that we have to make sure we are utilizing in our learning environments, because at the same time we have to develop the skill set for the youth, that they are able to have a good citizenship in this digital world. It has been challenged a lot lately with the dialogue around social media, for instance. So we have to give them tools to understand what the modern technology and fourth industrial revolution looks like in their lives. And we have to, at the same time, upskill them to thrive in the society, and also create that technological skilled workforce that all the nations and all the industries, from healthcare to education to business, needs going forward. And we have to, at the same time, remember that digital transformation and technology innovation is not about the technology. It's always about the people. So we have to make sure that whenever we are taking these leaps and steps, we have to take care of the people. And I think that is also some challenge. We have to make sure that when the post-hybrid or remote learning recovery is starting to happen, we have to make sure that people are looked after, and all the learning gaps or challenges that may have been caused can be closed down. But it has to be the learning and human-centric. And then if I can remind you that already before the COVID challenge, we were actually going through quite challenging times in education, in the sense that society around is changing, technology is enabling new things in the society, and the fact is and was that big part of the routine cognitive jobs will be automated for technology going further. And this routine cognitive jobs transformation in the job market was one of the big drivers for OECD's 2030 vision. The recognition that we have to also focus for skills. We cannot only focus for knowledge transition. So the whole skilling agenda, 21st century skills, that the risk-taking philosophy in education, and making sure that the learning is meaningful, made for everyone, it's motivating. The reality is that in the modern technological environment, we have to really make sure that all the kids have highest possible outcome in their learning. And I think that that is also one big pressure point for secondary education, both in vocational and in high school side, to be as successful as possible. So actually, secondary education will demand and show how that change in the skills development on national level will happen. Are we able to make sure that all the students are continuing to secondary education or beyond? And also how we can integrate the skills thinking into the curriculum at the same time. So if we now look the road ahead, we have been using this language that we had a huge response crisis when the COVID hit. Then it's a question about recovery and then reimagining what the new normal looks like. And I think that in the response stage, when global education system reached out and wanted to close the digital gap, and I think this is where the Kazakhstan policymakers and big digital transformation project in the terms of making sure that every student has a device and access to technology came up very timely. But then the next stage is, I think, where most of the education systems look like, pandemic is not globally over, it goes back and forth. But I think that now we are also more ready to execute this kind of hybrid learning. But also, what are the lessons learned from this crisis? What is the good of the learnings we can take us for the future? And then really reimagining what is the digital resilience. And when I was in the beginning of the presentation talking about the classroom technology, I think one big opportunity that became clear to all of us is that now if we are able to use digital tools throughout the learning process in the classroom, but also in home learning, in the city learning, in the libraries, etc., we are actually able to gather data and analyze and understand and unbox the black box of learning. And I think making sure and opening up the learning process to be visible, where teachers can understand what is happening in the learning process for the whole learning process and not in the classroom, is one of the key takeaways, what we have seen as an organization in the COVID. And that's why I think that, especially in secondary education, where the skills development challenge, the curriculum transformation, the assurance that every child in the country has the highest possible education degree, is really rather going thinking forward to school and not back to school. I think we all feel that the society and our world has changed, and going back to the 2019 December may be impossible. And yet there are something good learnings we have learned here, how we can take them forward. And I think all the changes and that are impacting to a real change has to start with good questions. here's some examples of the question that, what will my students need when they go back to school? How can I overcome there with the learning gaps? And this learning gap question is really, really interesting. We see globally that there's whole nations where the learning gap has been big, where simply students had to have extra vacation time, or only like 10 to 15% of the students were able to continue remote learning because of the technology access. Of course, we have seen also very innovative solutions where national broadcasting has been used as a way to reach out for the students. Or it may have happened in the regional level that different parts of the country has been more challenged than the others. But what we also see is that it may be on individual level. So it may be individual students who haven't been able to be connected, or the overall family and life situation have become so kind of drastically changed. But even some research data shows that even the reading capabilities for some kids have gone down during the COVID. So when we are rebuilding and reimagining, we definitely have to now take the learning personalization seriously, because learning gap may have happened on the individual level. And we don't want to lose generations of children because of COVID. We have to rebuild so that their personalized needs and learning gaps can be addressed when we are going back to the schools. And what kind of stressors they face in this home, how that continues in the school. So the whole view of social emotional well-being needs to be at the center of this. I think many research data now shows that the anxiety level, especially among the teenagers, the young adults, has gone up a lot. We know that in this kind of remote environments, what stronger professional identity you have, the better you have been able to thrive. But as we know, we talk about young adults, or teenagers. For them, their identity as a learner is still also fragile, and that's why that support is highly needed. And then at the same time, how we optimize the campus experience. I think the demand for more digital experience is there in the terms of what has been going well. Some students have been really thriving in the independent learning, and self-service education tools is needed. The remote support, or support that happens anytime, anywhere. Once again, if we support not only the classroom practice, but the overall learning process, then that support need is extending as well. And then blended learning in the terms of that we are able to use the best of face-to-face learning and best of the digital learning blended in together, because actually that is the workforce we are developing for them. And what the remote learning looks like, it's a little bit the same. It's not only the campus experience, but there's many same themes here. And demand for physical and contact and support as well, and the well-being becomes more and more important for this situation. So what we have used as a tagline here is a remote everything, and think about the campus continuity to the whole learning process, not only for the physical building. What I also recommend is that we should now look the questions and the kind of what we have to leave to the past, what the new normal looks like. So are we going from standardized to student engagement and connection? We go from passive learning to active decision maker, problem solving, and address those 6 C's. Is it linear thinking, or is it self-management, personalized approach, etc.? So this is the time to go and recap what those policy admirations are that you have, what in your institution you see have been working well, what is actually the current challenge you are facing with your students after this traumatic 2 years in the student's life. 67% of the teachers say that they believe that personalized learning is the best way to go, but they at the same time feel that they haven't had the technology tools or the support to do it. And that is now the challenge. Now we know that technology is advancing. It has advanced a lot during the pandemic. Let's grab this opportunity now. In the slides that will be shared with you, you have some kind of research-based observation, what educators need for this challenge or opportunity. So how they can have, for instance, better tools and data that shows and helps them to understand the personalized learning process of individual students much better. How we can see the school leaders being able to once again use the data and create those learning environments for everybody. And then what the individual student needs are for personalized learning. They need new skills and they need also support in this transformation, even though it's very interesting for them. The engines for our future is around artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, mixed reality. So we have to prepare kids for this future. And that is also one thing I want to end this presentation with and leave into your thinking some of the assets that as part of this transformation, there are assets that many industry developers, companies like Microsoft have done. We have a rich set of content that you can use with your students when preparing them from the future, when personalizing their learning journeys with their technology skills or other skills around how the digital is changing the world and how they prepare for the future. We have tools that can support educators in their personalized journey to become the masters of the personalized learning or hybrid learning and unblocking the whole learning process. We also have education transformation framework that we have worked with education experts around the world that is hopefully giving some thoughts what that transformation can look like, and also what are the best ways to utilize some of the resources that organizations like Microsoft has. That to be said, I want to thank you. I hope you have a good conference, and if there's now any questions, any comments, happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. That was really interesting. Just to clarify, by saying hybrid learning, is it about artificial intelligence and techniques with teachers, or it's about online learning combining with offline learning?
So how I see is that we used to talk about blended learning where we were blending together the physical, like face-to-face, paper-based, book-based, and then the digital learning. And hybrid learning is exactly the same concept of thinking learning as a process where we use all the best ways of learning. We use the face-to-face interaction, classroom collaboration, flipped learning, but then we do also utilize the more advanced technologies, data and analytics, etc., as part of it.
It's all together.
It's all together. Yes. And to be honest, that is what the work life is today. So when we want to make learners ready for the future, it's really important that we also give them the same kind of capabilities and experiences they have. And actually, students are quite demanding. Those who are into gaming, they are into much more interactive and visual learning experiences. So actually, we of course have to understand where the learners come from and okay, how they connect.
Thank you very much, Katie.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yes, have a good day. Thank you. So our next speaker is Peter Van Luzon, Director of Learning Experience, Student Success, Arizona State University. He's talking about instructional design. Please.
Depending where you're coming from. I know it's afternoon where you are. Good morning to Finland, and it's almost midnight here in Arizona. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to share a little bit more about instructional design and how it can support the school of the future. As we heard from Katie in our previous talk, there are many demands on our society about how we educate our students for the future, how we give them the knowledge and the skills in order to be successful in their professional lives, and also the many tools that are changing and are available right now. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to give you a framework on how to actually implement some of these tools and actually make them successful. And what is really necessary is that we purposefully design these learning experiences. We can't just throw tools into the classroom. We can't just expose our students to curriculum without any clear goals as well as clear design decisions in order to make it successful. And that's pretty much what I'm talking about today. First, I'm going to briefly introduce myself as well. So it's always good to know who you are talking to. So who am I? As you heard in my title, I'm the Director of Learning Experience and Student Success at Arizona State University, which is a large public university in Arizona in the United States. It has about 70,000 students that are what we call traditional students or face-to-face students, as well as close to 65,000 students that are purely online. We have been quite successful with our digital education for over 10, 12 years. So we were quite fortunate when when the pandemic hit that we had the infrastructure as well as the pedagogical knowledge on how to teach in that modality. But I'm also an educator. I've been teaching my whole life, if you want to say so, for quite some time. I was a high school and middle school teacher. I taught actually German, as you can probably hear. I do have a German accent. I've been teaching.
Родом из Германии, поэтому вы, наверное, распознаете мой немецкий.
Also online and hybrid as well. And I've been, through my studies as well as in my passion, I've been exposed or pursuing instructional design for more than 15 years as well. And what I do as I work with the faculty at the university, the teachers in my district and so on, I really think deeply about how do we become better teacher? You know, as we mentioned earlier, the world is constantly changing around us. I mean, just think about what happened in the last 18, 20 months. Technology is evolving. The tools that we are using are changing as well. As we also learned, the learners, they are changing as well. And they need different types of support as well as engagement in order to motivate them and also prepare them for the future and so on. And as I'm thinking about this, as a teacher, how do I make this happen? How can I make this more meaningful for my students? It comes really down to three key questions. How do I make learning more effective? Making sure that my learners are learning, or that the learners of today and tomorrow are learning what they're supposed to be learning in the right way. How do I make learning more efficient? Knowledge is added every day to if you look on the internet and so on as well. How do I make sure that my students or the students know what they're supposed to be knowing, and how do they acquire it in a very efficient way? And how do I make learning really more engaging? How do I motivate students? You know, we previously heard in the talk that we have gamers. You know, they are immersed in virtual worlds, and they are, it's fun where they can engage. And we as an education system have to compete with that environment very, very often. So now as I think about this, what we can really leverage is instructional design. And this really helps us to be addressed purposefully this paradigm shift that we are seeing today and how we are addressing these changes from a systems view. Because that's really key. Sorry, 1 second. Because systems view and being systems thinker is really key to being an instructional designer. This is a nice little infographic that I often hand out. And when you have the slides, you also can download it and use it for yourself. But really it shows that we are purposefully designing, experimenting, testing, and evaluating the learning experience that we are creating. And for those people who are interested very much in instructional design, and it's a field, it's been around for 75 years or so. I'm not going to read you the definition in here, but really what I want to highlight is that it's a systems approach to make sure that our learning is effective, efficient, and humane. So while this definition is great, so the way I generally try to explain it, so let's assume this is how somebody would learn without much instructions and so on. You know, over time, we make a quick learning increase, and then we plateau without any further gains. So with the help of the instructional design, we can set higher learning goals. And then with purposefully designing, development, and evaluation, we can create an intervention in the learning curve or in the learning experience that is more effective, efficient, and as we said, engaging as well. So this is a great thing. So we can actually do this and make it happen. It's not just a coincidence that we can create better learning outcomes. And one of the great things at my institution, which is Arizona State University, there's actually a profession of instructional designers, which are really partnering with educators across the university as well as across the state. So, and these partners are really collaborators in their profession. And there are many, many different roles they're taking on. So you can see some of the highlights that you're seeing here described. You know, there are, of course, designers, there are thinkers. As Katie pointed out, data is going to become more and more important as our students are engaging with digital tools. So, you know, these the designers help interpret the data to really understand what are behaviors of our students, what are interventions that we need to design at what time in order to make sure that students are successful and moving on. In addition, there are many different other roles, and one of my favorite roles that I always like to hear is that we are superheroes. We do a lot of different things in order to help our educators be successful in the classroom, because that will translate into successful learning outcomes for our students. And so what we really recognize here is that the paradigm has shifted from a teacher-centered approach to a more collaborative, team-based approach with the student in the center. In the next couple slides, I'm going to briefly talk about really, okay, what are concrete steps that you can take in order to make learning more effective, efficient, and engaging. Foremost, as I said, it has to be purposefully designed, whatever learning experience you are creating. And what we are using is a model called backward design. And we are really starting with the end in goal, right? So we start thinking about, as our students go through these learning experience, what are they supposed to know? This is the knowledge. What are they supposed to do? This is the skill that we are supposed to teach them as well. And then we directly look at assessments. How do we know that our students have mastered these skills and mastered this knowledge? So we can directly align it with that. And from that one on, we really think about, where do our students come from? What existing knowledge do they have? What kind of environment do they work in? Is it in the classroom? Is it online? Is it in a large lecture hall? Is it in a small classroom? And try to come up, and we design the instructional activities in order to get to the desired learning outcomes. So it's a very purposefully method that is backward design. When you have the slides, you can actually, there's a URL that I've included where you can engage with one of our learning objects builders that we have created and made available online. And this is really the beginning of the design process, where we decide, or where we work with our faculty on what are some of the learning outcomes that we are trying to achieve. And there is a different taxonomy that we are using in the US. We're using the Bloom's taxonomy of learning. It's very popular, at least on our side of the ocean. And it helps us really to analyze, okay, do they just need to understand basic fundamentals, or do they really want to apply some of these concepts and actually need to create something? In the end, yes, we want to get them all to the highest level of being creators, but in order to get there, certain steps are necessary. And this often helps us then to create, like standards for our teachers and for our courses, as well as for our online and face-to-face modalities. And these are often, we summarize these in checklists that you're seeing here, and it helps us with communicating the different needs to the various instructors that we have available. It really is a great way to help us making learning effective and scaling it at the same time. With that in mind, so let's move from effectiveness to efficiency. So what are ways we can actually make learning more efficient, right? So, and these are, there are many models and processes in instructional design that is available. One of the most common one is called the ADDIE model, which stands for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate. And it's a circular model, so it repeats over time. But as an educator or as an instructional designer, you really think, for example, when you're analyzing who are your learners, what are some expectations you have for them? These are the goals. What should the students be able to do after the course? What kind of technology do they bring? Do they need technology? Do we need to teach them certain technology literacy skills and so on as well? And as we analyze the learning task in these environments, we are able to design and develop the instructional experiences that we then implement and evaluate. So this is a kind of nice process. And as Katie pointed out earlier, there are a lot of needs. So we can really think deeply about this, how we can address these needs and solve them by purposefully designing this. And this is one model to do so. Of course, we use technology quite a lot to make learning more efficient. And I just used the example of videos. As we know, videos are readily available, and not just on the internet, but also students can create them themselves. So it's a great medium to be creative. So achieving some of these higher learning outcomes that I previously talked about. But often, particularly in the hybrid environment, we have found that we have our instructors record the fundamental information, what we used to call lectures or instructions, in videos that students then, instead of watching it in the classroom, they're watching it before they're coming to class. And that has been quite popular because students can rewind at any time. They can watch it whenever they want to. They don't have to wait for certain people. We also provide closed captioning, so subtitles. That has been very popular for anybody, not just people with disabilities and so on. So it really helps people to, let's say, consume or conduct their learning at their own time, at their own speed. And videos, as you know, can be used for many, many different purposes. We do have here one demonstration on how to solve a math equation. We have one example where instructor introduces herself. So that's often to build that social engagement and the human-centered approach, as well as we have other types of videos available as well. Very common now with the use of digital tools, we are able to really dive deep into our learners' behaviors as well as learner performance. At any time, we can see who is struggling among our students. We can see what they're struggling with. And then we can also see what is necessary in order to help them. Remember, we previously heard more about personalized learning. This is really the opportunity for data to come in and showcase its power that it has. By being able to really differentiate by individual learners, how they are doing, what they are doing, what they're struggling with. We're able to provide better feedback and better learning experiences in order to achieve these goals that we are setting for ourselves. Another way, let's move on from efficiency to engagement, is really to think about, okay, how do we motivate our students, right? So, and particularly in the US, that is sometimes a challenge as well, because there are many, many distractors that our students have to face. And how do we make it happen that they actually enjoy learning, that we are competing with entertainment, with video games, with movies, and other things. So very common, has always been there, but it's even in today's time with the access to technology, this is becoming more and more apparent. So instructional design can really help you think through this with how do we make this human-centered learning happening, where we have people work collaboratively in groups, share their experiences, work together to create artifacts in order to move the learning and the dialogue forward. Of course, you know, when we are competing with technology, we can also use technology for our purposes. And here, what I have is something that we are working on right now to engage our students a lot with virtual reality. Tools change all the time, so we need to make sure that we are staying abreast with the developments in the field. But also, we want to make sure that we utilize them for our learning
3
as
minutes
well.
left.
Thank you very much. And really engage our students and motivate them in that particular way. Finally, something else that also we need to make sure as we are engaging our students is that we integrate them into the learning process. And something I'm a big fan of is this RISE model from Emily Ray, where we help our students become critical thinkers, become peer reviewers in order to provide meaningful feedback to their peers and students as well. And that's not necessarily easy. Not everybody is able to do that right from the start. So this model is a way to scaffold this experience and really train our students to become these constructive but productive peers. With that in mind, if you are interested to learn more about what is learning design or instructional design, there are many, many different resources out there. When you're getting the slides, I could incorporated many links for you in the documents as well as the slides. Something I want to share, that the instructional designer position or profession is one of the most popular one right now in the US. So it's a rapid growth, and that's particular due to the pandemic, of course, because more and more institutions are recognizing that they need to purposefully design the learning experiences. And an instructional designer is best prepared for that. Because, as I previously mentioned, we are systems thinkers. We are taking risks, but these are calculated risks in order to engage our students in an effective and efficient way. And with that in mind, thank you very much for this opportunity. If you have any questions, either email me, or I'm also happy to answer several questions now.
Thank you very much, Peter. And there is a question. You said about instructional design has many models.
Yes.
So can you quickly, shortly explain how to choose the best one, how to find the appropriate one?
Yeah, so there are some there are many models, as I said. So, and it really, some are very specific to contexts. So there might be for K-12 environments, or there might be for an online environment, or even in the military, instructional design is being used as well, because they have to train certain skills very rapidly and effectively as well. So you have to look at the context, but also at the purpose a little bit. The instructional design is very broad, so at times people just want to focus on the development of the production element of instructional materials. So you need to create much more like rapid prototyping and these type of models out there as well. So it takes a little bit skill to evaluate and investigate and to find that right model. Starting with Eddie is a good start.
So in education, you use EDD, yeah?
Eddie, yeah, that's a very good start.
So thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Bye. So our next speaker we continue our session. Our next speaker is from Estonia, Mart Laanpere, professor of mathematics and computer education in Tallinn University. So he will be talking about personalization of education in the digital era.
I'm glad to be with you this morning, at least in Estonia this morning. Let me share my slides with you.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. I would like to start with contrasting two paradigms in building online learning platforms, because this has been one of my research areas for the last 20 years. And I've been involved in building 4 different online learning platforms during this 2 decades. And I've understood that how this field has changed during this time. So the traditional paradigm that started already in 1990s tried to build an online learning platforms with monolithic architecture. So it means that they tried to build a single enterprise level information system that incorporates all different functionalities within the same system. So you only have one system, you log in, you can set up your courses, create all the content, tests, discussion spaces, and so on, all in the same system. And if you needed something specific, like for instance, some of your teachers became really engaged in concept mapping, then you just needed to add this concept mapping module inside of this system. This kind of traditional systems were also very much centralized, very stable and static, didn't change too often. Very much controlled institutionally, which also means that as soon as the student finishes his or her studies in this institution, he or she loses the user account and access to all this wealth of knowledge and resources created on this platform. Usage statistics also involved only the learners and the teachers' actions only on this platform, not outside. And usually all the content was protected by password. It's a closed environment. And emerging a new paradigm now of the next generation learning platforms is quite opposite in the same lines. So it means instead of being monolithic, it's evolving ecosystem of many interoperable digital services, because we've been observing the rise of new kind of internet where the services emerge in very narrow niches. So for instance, YouTube only makes the host videos, for instance, or there are some other, for instance, there are tools only to build timelines or only to play with post-it notes online. So it means that the new services are very narrow but they can be integrated to each other or to some central system which has this authentication and user accounts. So that makes the system very distributed and dynamic. So it means that as soon as you found a better concept mapping tool, a newer one, more flexible, you switch from this old tool to new one, and you just link this new concept mapping service to your central platform. This kind of dynamic platform allows increased learner and teacher autonomy, not just autonomy to select the tools, but also autonomy in the ways you learn and teach. It provides much richer learning analytics that goes outside of your central platform and observes also what the learners do in social media, in other services. And it is definitely not closed. It's very much open. It means that when the learner completes his studies or teacher switches to another school, they can take their content with them and discussions and school works, the homeworks, assignments, and so on, and to use them as evidences of their competence in the next organization. So this is just a little bit simplified, but nevertheless, this contrasting description characterizes the trend of development of online learning environments. So I call this new type of online learning platforms digital learning ecosystem, because it resembles very much the biological ecosystem, that is a community of learning organisms like plants, animals, and microbes in conjunction with their abiotic components in their environment like air, water, light, and soil. So this is biological ecosystem, but we can observe that in digital ecosystem, the things evolve pretty much in the same manner like in biological ecosystem. It means that we also have the energy flow. Instead of energy flow in digital learning ecosystem, we have knowledge flows. We have self-regulation, we have succession, we have niches for different species of agents, digital agents here. So this is the paradigm our research group has been developing to understand and also to build the next generation digital learning ecosystems. So in order to connect all this multitude of digital learning services to each other and to central institutional platform and user accounts, we need to have a machine-readable way to describe competencies and learning outcomes to connect them in machine-readable way for making high-quality learning analytics. We also need to connect in machine-readable way learning outcomes with assignments that are given by teacher to students. And assignments to learning resources and learning resources to curriculum taxonomy on the national level and on the school level. And this would allow us to collect the digital traces of learner interaction with assignments, with learning resources, and to see how they map to learning outcomes and competencies to draw the map of advancements of the competencies and collect evidences. So this is the scheme of Estonian digital learning ecosystem today. So we have lots of different information systems. Some are on a national level, like this learners registry, teachers registry. Some are on the school level, like the school information system, which is used for mostly administrative purposes, but this is the system every teacher, every student visits several times a day, because this is where the grades and all the essential data and also communication between home and school is stored. Then we have national catalog of learning resources where learning resources are mapped to national curriculum taxonomy. We have different repositories of digital learning resources at publishers, universities, some authors like teachers, for instance, who create learning resources. They have their own repositories on their websites. But what we try to do now is to map all these digital learning resources that are scattered around the internet, sometimes inside of different service providers, databases. We try to map them automatically or semi-automatically to this catalog of learning resources so that the other teachers could also discover the learning resources for the team of their interest. Yeah, so, but the thing that we are missing now is the blue one in the middle. It means the next generation learning management system that is able to talk to all these different systems and to integrate them all together. And this kind of system is Scholabi that was designed in Tallinn University, but now it is being developed by an Estonian company called Net Group. So we found that this university company partnership works really well, that the university, based on our research, designs the concept and all the innovative parts. Right now we are working on artificial intelligence solutions for this platform, but the company is the one who's responsible for actual development and also service provision. So Scholabi is cloud-based, very thin learning management system that any teacher should be able to use within 15-20 minutes introduction. So there is not so much to learn because it's very, very easy. You can log into this platform using different single sign-on services that are very common in Estonian schools, like Harid, or you can use this school information system password to get in, or your mobile ID or smart ID. We have several of them. It allows orchestration of tens of different integrated learning services without sharing the student data with the service providers. There is a new learning technology standard called Learning Tools Interoperability, LTI, that allows the connection of external services like concept mapping or mathematical tasks like GeoGebra. You can connect it to the central learning management system like Scholabi, and then you can give the assignment to students. So go and draw the triangle, and the student clicks on this task, and he will be carried out to GeoGebra service where he draws this triangle, does his calculations. GeoGebra never gets the personal data of the student, only some hashtags or codes, but the responses and the analytics of the student is returned to the central platform, Scholabi, where teacher can then see it and give feedback to student. So any teacher, school leader, school owner can monitor the learning activities in the ecosystem of these integrated services. In the future, this part of Scholabi is not yet fully developed, but this is what we learned from the emergency distance education during the COVID pandemic, that as soon as the teachers switch to online learning platform, usually they use different platforms and tools for online learning. The school principals lost the overview what actually happens in my school, because school principal was not included on this platform and didn't get any statistics of activities of teachers, of the students, and this multitude of digital tools. So we try to provide it now on the Scholabi platform. That we think that it is very important that school administration also has the overview of what goes on in the digital learning. It's also possible in the future to automate some tasks. Already now, the School Hub is able to recommend to teacher some learning resources that are associated to this topic of choice the teacher is currently teaching. This is the platform has designed so that it is suitable both for normal and also this emergency distance education learning mode. The main units here are not topics, but learning tasks. And instead of courses, we have their journeys, learning journeys. So we heavily use this metaphor-driven design. It is not so new thing. The other learning management system have been using also space metaphors or toolbox metaphors like Moodle, or message stream metaphor like the chat metaphor like in Edmodo, or blog metaphor in Class Dojo. So School Hub uses, instead of course, we use metaphor a journey. So you initiate a learning journey, you invite students to your journey, and then you have in this journey, you have milestones, which are like sleepovers, where you take a little rest or break, and then see that if everybody has caught up with the main group.
3 minutes
soon. Yeah. So this is how the journey looks like in School Hub. So on the horizontal scale, you see the milestones, and to every milestone, the teacher first designs these milestones, and then the School Hub suggests some available digital learning resources that are connected to this topic of the milestone. And based on that, the teacher can create these interactive assignments. And when student has completed all the assignments for this milestone, they will become green, and also milestone will become green, and you can move to the next milestone. So right now, this journey or learning path is the same for all students, but now we are working on the next generation where students could have their own personalized learning paths. So it means that not all students have to take the same path or the same journey. So to conclude my presentation, COVID-19 pandemic and emergency distance education that was forced upon schools because of this pandemic, they pointed out the weakness of our existing digital learning platforms. So not enough integration, very poor learning analytics, especially for school administration and parents. So it gives us very strong signal that we should use this knowledge from pandemic period to improve our learning tools and to design new type of learning platforms aiming at better interoperability, automation, but also personal data protection and manageability. So we don't need to wait for the next crisis. We can use this knowledge already now, and we have demonstrated it with the School Hub, which is now also very much interested to find new users in other countries than in Estonia. And School Hub works together with some educational content providers from Estonia, like OPIC, which I think is already familiar in Kazakhstan. So OPIC is only the content, but they don't have a learning environment. But School Hub complements this OPIC very well. So together they are really high quality next generation learning platform that might change the learning in the future. So I invite you to try it out. And if you're interested, you can contact the company that would organize some trainings for you. And
may I ask a question? Yeah. So is it paid or open source product?
And no, it's a commercial product. So because it takes really a lot of funds to to develop a new learning platform from
can
scratch.
any teacher use the product separately, or it should be implemented throughout the whole school or system?
So it is designed to be used on the school level, definitely. But currently, of course, we have it's in the pilot period, and in many schools, only few teachers right now are using it. The teachers who are more courageous and the front runners, the innovators. So definitely in the first stage, you can use it for free and only with few teachers to find out if it's used for your school.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark. It was interesting. So in all three presentations, there were such words like big data, artificial intelligence, or hybrid learning. So exactly, education is changing, and being prepared for this change is very important for teachers and leaders, for even students. So I think everybody get useful information for himself. So very thanks, a lot of thanks for speakers. So now I'm closing our session. So thank you very much. Goodbye.